Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello, and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today, I'm very excited to share a poetry collection for our spooky season. So please welcome Pooja Arshanapally, who has written The Haunted Wardrobe, a collection of 31 poems about haunted stories sitting around the campfire. Hi, Pooja, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me on your podcast.
I'm so excited to have you on. You and I have been talking about doing this for a long time now, since honestly, 2024 is when we first connected. So I'm glad to have you on for spooky season.
Yeah, it's been such a long time to get this settled, so I'm really excited to be on your podcast.
So we're going to just dive right in. And why don't you tell our listeners about the Haunted Wardrobe?
So The Haunted Wardrobe is a collection of 31 poems, and what inspired me was I always I always loved Halloween. I It was always my favorite holiday of the year because I felt like you could be able to experience or be someone completely different for a day, and I thought that was such a cool thing to do. So I also grew up singing. I loved the lyrical stuff, and I just wanted to figure out a way to combine the two. And I thought that this would be like the perfect combination. When I started talking about the idea of it, it intrigued a lot of people, which gave me like the power to continue on and be able to actually execute it into like fruition. It consists of like some heavy topics as well as very childhood goosebumps types of stories. So it's kind of a mix of different bag of different types of stories.
What are some of your writing inspirations for when you approach storytelling and writing poetry?
For Halloween, I really liked Stranger Things and Goosebumps. I really liked the nostalgia, how people feel when you mention those types of stories. I liked the adolescence of it, where it feels you're brought back into childhood. That's what inspired me to make these different types of stories because it reminded me of my childhood.
And today you're going to share one of those short stories with us. How about you introduce it and tell us a little bit about it?
I have one short story slash poem, and it's called The Coven's Whisper. I wrote this poem because when I grew up, I was very introverted. I still am, but I think I'm just more confident about, like, I've just accepted and I'm fine with being introverted. But at the time, a lot of people had a problem with that. I felt often very misunderstood. This is what inspired me to write this poem. There once was a witch that didn't fit in. When the witches hollered, she chose to whisper. When the witches cast with a tragic force, she would cast it softly, her words a gentle course. All the other witches believed she was meek, told her she didn't fit in because she couldn't speak. That's the price you pay for having a quiet soul, because everyone will think you are weak. In a coven that felt so loud, people made her feel so small, like she was a lost soul in the woods where the witches didn't need her at all. But then something disrupted the scene, silencing the witches, their voices unseen. The old warlock ruined the path that was shown. He put a curse on all the witches, and she knew she was all alone. So all the witches relied on her to defeat the old, wicked, wretched beast. She was frightened, scared, overwhelmed, and unprepared. Why me? She said with a trembling voice, but deep down she had the strength and choice. It was her duty to vanquish the beast, to silence the menace and bring forth the peace. She felt the words pierce down like a fork and realized they started to work. She realized it wasn't about the volume. As she spoke with conviction, the words took flight, each syllable voiced with truth and might. The curse was uplifted, and all the witches cheered with delight. They all rejoiced in the brand new light.
That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
I think this one is probably the one that is more meaningful to me. I feel like a lot of the different types of stories follow this type of pattern.
I love it. I love, especially when there is kind of a atmospheric vibe around it, a good poetry series like this. So personally, I'm really excited to have you sharing this on the podcast today. So we're going to shift a little bit into the technical side, and I would like to Talk about some of your writing process for putting together a poetry book like this.
Yeah, so I first started with the idea and concepts of a Halloween poetry book. And when I had other people get intrigued with the idea of it, I think that w was what I decided to go on off of. So either September or October, 1 month, I decided I'm just gonna pick random ideas of like different types of Halloween like scenes, creatures, anything that comes into mind. I'm just gonna write a topic for the day and I'm just gonna write a like crappy first draft and just put whatever comes into mind every single day. And I'm just gonna write for that month, whatever comes to mind. So that's what I did for a month. And then from there, I decided to condense the different ideas that I actually liked. And I think I condensed it to like 20 ideas. And then from those 20 ideas, then I started to extend more into the poems and started to write like a full draft of it. But I still wasn't critiquing it. I was more of like, how can I extend the ideas? How can I extend all the nuance to the story? Do I want to leave it as a story? How do I want to end it? So it was more of like the development of it. From there, then I kept editing and critiquing it. And I know for poetry, it's a little bit different because you want to have like some rhythm to it. So I was starting adding the rhymes and making it rhythmic, like having a rhyme scheme to it. And from there, then I started going back in rounds of editing. A lot of it was me just constantly saying out loud, talking it out loud and hearing the sounds. And I was like, does this rhyme? Does this make sense? Does it fit in with the theme or is it off? So it was a lot of that. Then from there, I started getting other people to then read it themselves and critique it. So I would go through, I think I went through Facebook and just asked if anyone really liked poetry or if this is something that would be, intrigue them. And I got a couple of beta readers to then go back and like give me critiques on certain things. So the editing process probably took the majority of the time, but it was definitely the most important. I feel like the ideas are just the start of it, but then the revising and revision, that's where you actually see your stories take place, how it should sound or how it should feel to people and how it should present itself.
I have had authors on the podcast discuss how they would read their dialogue between characters out loud to see if it kind of feels like a natural, real conversation. And I had never thought about doing that for poetry. But for gathering like the cadence and the rhyme and the rhythm, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's that's one thing that I really wanted to emphasize. I was like, it has to rhyme because um I guess like you could do free flow. Like that is an option that people can take. But for me, I really wanted to be lyrical because I wanted it to either sound like a nursery rhyme. I honestly wanted it to I wanted it to get stuck in people's heads. In the same way that we listen to music, I wanted it to be rhythmic so people would be like, "Oh, like I can't get it out of my head." That's how I wanted it to feel catchy in a sense. So that's why I wanted it to be rhythmic and like have some sort of cadence.
I love that so much. So let's talk about your journey from writing, editing, and on to publishing.
So I would say like when it comes to writing, I think I emphasized it a little bit. I focus on the idea, but I think where I felt the most, like I felt like where the bulk of the bulk of my process was when I started editing and revising and just continuously doing that. I would say when it comes to poetry, it's just very different when it comes to editing. And it's very different for every poetry writer as well. I started with the story first because I wanted to create a story and then make it rhyme. And then I started sounding out and making sure that it makes sense with the rhyme and making sure that the words make sense within the rhyme. And does it contextually make sense within the poetry itself? I decided to do self-publishing for the route because for me, I really liked having the control and being able to have the control of like what my cover looks like, what I get to write. Because for me, I wanted to publish what I wanted, and I don't know if I still like am still figuring out like I don't know whether or not a Halloween poetry book is like a marketable thing for like a trad publisher to pick up on. So it gives you freedom to test things out. For me, I was willing to test it out and be able to see whether or not it works or not. I decided to do Ingram Spark and KDP. So I know Ingram Spark is kind of like the online space that is not Amazon. So it's like Target, any indie bookstores, all of that. And then I also did Amazon as well. I think I wanted to do both because I just don't want to be reliant on one platform, and I wanted to be able to extend more. I also wanted to have the option of doing book signings as well, or being able to work with local indie bookstores and be able to do consignment there. So I wanted to be able to have access to more opportunities.
There's something that I've talked about on the podcast with other indie authors before, and that is diversifying from Amazon and how it is challenging for an indie author, but it does open up additional avenues such as working with local and independent bookstores. So that's something that we definitely love to support on the podcast. And, I know Amazon is very restrictive on what it requires of its independent authors. So I always like to try to support indie authors any way I can without supporting Amazon. So I definitely love being able to connect with indie bookstores. And then, indie authors and indie bookstores is something that just kind of goes hand in hand. So if you have an indie bookstore near you, you can always request a copy of any indie author's book, but specifically The Haunted Wardrobe. And you can request them to carry that in your indie bookstore as well as your local libraries.
Just really love being able to go to indie bookstores. So that's why I wanted to be able to find some way to work with them as well, because I just think it's important to like support people who are also wanting to, a lot of it's community oriented in the way. So it's like you're both benefiting in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just creating that partnership between indie authors and indie bookstores. I mean, it feels like a no-brainer to me. Do you have additional projects you want to discuss, or, what are you working on right now?
Yeah, I can talk about like different projects. Originally, I had like the Haunted Wardrobe, and now I'm deciding to do a winter poetry book. It's still in the works, so I don't have a title or anything right now of when it's going to get published, but I can send my Instagram handle as well as like it's called The Life of Pooja, my Instagram handle, where I will be like sending any updates for the launch of the next book. I also have a Substack. It's called, again, The Life of Pooja, but it is a Substack where I share like updates about my book, but just in general, just like anything that comes to mind as well. I would say that is what I have right now in the works.
Yeah, that's great. I love the idea of seasonal poetry books. Then you can just, pull one out with the change of the seasons. They look great on your mantle or on your coffee table. And then it's just a great atmospheric read to really get you in the mood for that season. I love this.
Yeah. I really want to like create a collection of like different seasonal content because I just think that it's just unique like in a way like having poetry book or I kind of was envisioning maybe like during the seasons it being like a decor or like something that they shop for just to update their decor for like Christmas season, Halloween, things like that.
Yeah, that's what I love. I'm down for it. I do have, especially for Halloween, I do have a collection of just like really aesthetic hardcover books that I always bring out every Halloween that just, it's part of the decor and you get to read it. So it's useful. I love that so much. So, all right, so I'm going to have us play a game called 5 4 3 2 1. So, with this game, we go over 5 books that you've read and recommend, 4 genres or tropes that you love, 3 authors you always read, 2 places that you love to read at, and then 1 book that you promise to read soon. So, we're going to go ahead and start with 5 books that you've read and recommend to our listeners.
I would say Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's been a while since I've read that book, but I every time I'm like it's like 5 stars. I just really like her writing style. Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. That one was really like interesting. I know this one is an old one, but I really like The Great Gatsby. I think I watched it, but I also read it in high school. So that one also I really love. I'm away from my like bookshelf, so I wish
I know, I hear you.
I could see it. So I'm like trying to like envision my bookshelf of like what do I have? Because I know I have all the next one is One Star Romance. It's not really like a romancy type of book, but it's more literary fiction and it feels like you're going into two different people's life and seeing them extend. Like even though they're like kind of like frenemies at this point, you see them like change, their lives change in the trajectory. So it's really cool in that way. And I think the last one, The Wedding People. Yeah, the last one was with Wedding People. It's kind of like a dark, I would say that there are trigger warnings to this book, so I would definitely look at that. But you meet like all these characters, and it's like meeting someone like from Gossip Girl versus someone who's like the working class and they're like clashing and interacting with each other. It just makes for like an interesting like context or like you're kind of like looking at it as like a third person view, trying to see how they interact with each other. So it's really cool.
Next, we have four genres or tropes that you love.
I really like the frenemies when they don't like each other and then they end up liking each other. Like usually in romance because there's already tension. So it's like, okay, there's something happening.
So, like rivals to friends and rivals to
Yes.
lovers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I like the slow burn ones.
Mm,
Sometimes like the slow burn like even if they aren't like hating each other, I like when it's like a friendship and it becomes like a slow burn. Usually those are really cool. I don't know if this is like a trope, but I think when like someone wants revenge, like a fantasy, if someone wants revenge or something like they want to like take on revenge on someone, I feel like that's an interesting plot.
yeah, that's always fun.
I know this is not technically like a trope, but like a scavenger hunt or like a journey type of trope where you're
Yeah.
having to go on a path or like a road trip to something.
Yeah, I love that. I think that should count as a trope. I mean, sort
Yeah.
of, you know. It's at least, a certain style of setting, so I'll count it as a trope. I think it counts. So next we have three authors that you always read.
I would say R.F. Kuang. I do read her books. I'm trying to go back into Taylor Jenkins' reads, so I'm trying to read her past. I've read a majority of her books. And then I would say I've read Garber's books, so I really like her books too.
So what are two places where you love to read?
I like reading in a coffee shop,
Mm,
um, and I like reading outside. Like if the weather is nice, like I like reading outside too.
yeah, me too. Only when the weather's nice, though. Otherwise, I'm over it so fast.
Right.
Okay, so for our last one, what is one book that you promise you're going to read soon?
I bought the book Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, so I'm trying to like I am like 20% in and I'm like I need to finish this. Like I've been on this for too long and I just need to finish this book.
All right. I feel that. I do have a few where like I really want to read this book, but I'm just not like in the right mood for it when I start it. So I'm not DNFing it. I'm just coming back when I'm in the right headspace. Okay, so I want to thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today to talk about the Haunted Wardrobe, our little spooky poetry collection featuring haunted stories and some excellent rhythmic prose. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really hope if anyone gets a chance to read it, I really hope that you're able to like read it and like maybe like talk about it with your friends. And I am so excited for everyone. And I really thank you so much for allowing me on your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we finally made it work. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, but perfect time, spooky
Yeah.
season. Here we go. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @Must Love Books Podcast. Thank you and happy reading.